Okay. Hey, good morning again. Welcome to Project Echo. Today, our talk is on patients with substance use disorder in the justice system. Mary Ellis and Judge Klein will be presenting on this today. I'll get through my usual housekeeping stuff, and then we will turn it over to them. This slide here, the usual slide, just everyone involved here, no financial relationships to disclose. And then our usual funding statement, we're funded by the State Opioid Response Grant that comes to us through Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the CME certificate process. There'll be a quick evaluation survey in the chat at the end of this presentation this morning, as well as in an email, maybe about an hour or two after the presentation. So just complete that quick survey and your CME certificate will become available after that. And just a reminder where we are in our current series, we do these in cycles of 4. So we are in the third of the current 4 here. In 2 weeks, Dr. Bennington will be completing our current series with psychosocial challenges with SUD treatment. Then we'll be off for a month and we'll be back again in January and February with another round of 4. Okay. And speaking of our expert panel here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let them introduce themselves quickly, and then we will get on to our presentation. Okay, let's see here. John, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yes, good morning. I'm John Massey, and I'm a pain physician in Lincoln. Happy to be
Dr.
here.
Mass? And Ed.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Ed Kaiser here, nurse practitioner in Omaha, Nebraska. Excited to be with you guys.
Thank you. And Todd?
Good morning, Todd Stahl. I'm a addiction medicine psychiatrist.
Thank you. And Alex?
Alex Dwork, family physician in Omaha. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And I don't see Stephanie. Are you on this morning, Stephanie? I don't see her in there yet. Stephanie Bennington's addiction psychiatrist out in the western part of the state. Okay, Mary, I will let you introduce yourself and Judge Klein, and we'll go from there.
Okay, my name is Mary Ellis. I am an attorney and a nurse practitioner, and I work here in Nebraska and Omaha and surrounding communities.
All right. I thought Mary was going to introduce me. So I'm Judge Tom Klein. I'm the county court judge in the 6th Judicial District. I sit most of the time or all the time in Fremont. County court covers probate, small claims, civil, misdemeanor cases, and juvenile courts, primarily our docket, probate, guardianships. My caseload, our judicial load here in Dodge County is 1.88, meaning we should have 2 judges over most cases. We have 3 judges rotate through. My docket consists of about 70% of the criminal docket. I do cover all the juvenile docket here in Dodge County, which is about 300 cases a year, about 420 to 450 open dockets. And then I am the backup judge for Judge Hall on the drug court or problem solving team here in Dodge County. Before we get too far in it, I want to tell everybody, I have to go to a lot of the judicial equivalent of this. So the last thing I want to do is bore you all to death. So I do want this to be a fairly open presentation. If people have questions, please ask. We'll try to make this interactive and entertaining. Next slide there was fine. That's my education. I got my bachelor's degree at UNO, political science and history, so pretty useless other than if you want to be on Jeopardy. I did get my Juris Doctorate in 1992 from Creighton University. I spent most of my career as a public defender and private practice attorney in Wahoo, Nebraska. Since taking the bench about 3 years ago, the biggest thing I wanted to highlight was that our Through the Eyes of the Child team won the Outstanding Team Excellence Award for 2025. Through the Eyes of the Child is a collaborative effort involving all our stakeholders, health and human services, probation, attorneys that work in our courtroom, service providers. that work collaboratively to try to figure out solutions, problem solve for families and youth. And we were awarded the Through the Eyes of the Child Team Excellence Award. And that's an award, as Michael Jordan always said, there is no I in team. It is a team award. I am really blessed to work with a lot of great people here in Dodge County. So let's go ahead. A little bit about me personally. I think I have a different background. I'm married to my wife, Sally, for 27 years. I have two sons. Michael, who's 23, he's a Metro grad. He works as an audio video producer for the Omaha Storm Chasers and Baxter Arena. My youngest son, Joseph, he's a senior. He's finishing in about 3 weeks at UNO. He's going to be a financial planner. I would note, just because every medical thing I go to, my parents were both career school teachers. My dad was a physics teacher and track coach at Westside for 38 years. My mom taught at Mary R. Queen for 25 in Omaha. So I'm guessing somebody probably on this presentation, or a lot of somebody's have run into my mom and dad over the years. They do have a lot of influence on who I am, I guess, for lack of a better term. I would note, just on a side note on personal information, my oldest sister, Leanne, who's 64 now, is profoundly autistic. She lives at Mosaic Home Campus at Axtell, Nebraska. My older son, Michael, is actually on the autism spectrum. So autism through my family has influenced my life in a lot of ways. My parents are actually one of the original co-founders of the Nebraska Autism Society. All right. If you could, Will. In this, I'm just going to note, when Mary originally approached me about doing this, we were considering doing actual cases we have. I did run this by court administration, and judicial ethics don't allow me to comment on any past, present cases. So we developed a hypothetical scenario here that we're going to run through today. So just so everybody knows, I really wish we could talk, even though the hypothetical will not differentiate much, but it seems like everybody gets more excited about real things we do. But unfortunately, we're going to run through a hypothetical situation today to talk about how the judicial process and medical providers work together. So here's our hypothetical case scenario. Mary is a surgical technician at an outpatient surgical clinic. She routinely works 4 12-hour shifts, does occasional overtime. She's the mother of 3 children, Abby 14, Brett 12, Charlie 3. Her ex-husband Edgar is the father to Abby and Brett. Edgar and Mary had a stressful marriage, many instances of verbal arguments. Edgar has 2 prior convictions for domestic violence, as Mary is the victim. Tim is Charlie's father. Tim and Mary were never married. Tim is currently incarcerated for drug possession. He's getting out on parole in 4 months. Mary and Tim continue to have a relationship, stated they're going to live together when he gets out of prison. Abby is a straight A student, recently started a sexual relationship with Jed, a 20-year-old construction worker she met through social media. Abby sneaks out of the house after her mother goes to bed. She spent several nights at Jed's house. She was recently cited for minor in possession when police pulled over Jed's vehicle and alcohol was found in the car. Abby has a pending juvenile case for that. Will, if you could, thank you. Brett is a straight A student enrolled in honors classes. School observes no unusual behaviors. Everyone views Brett as a great kid. Charlie is 3 years old. He has an extremely limited vocabulary, weak eye contact, does not engage much with other children at daycare. After work one day, Mary joins coworkers at a local bar for an after-work drink. She stops at school to pick up Brett, then picks up Charlie from daycare. Abby is with Jed, whereabouts unknown to Mary. On the way home, Mary's talking on her cell phone, drives over the center line and the fog line, ultimately stopped by the sheriff's office. Deputy smells alcohol coming from Mary's breath. Mary's arrested for driving while intoxicated. While being booked into jail, law enforcement finds a meth pipe and a baggie. Field test positive for methamphetamine. No one is available to take care of the Brett and Charlie, so NDHHS takes temporary custody of Abby, Brett, and Charlie. Mary's charged with possession of methamphetamine, driving while intoxicated, 2 counts of child abuse, and driving while intoxicated. So I put what services does everybody feel, and again, I'm going to note as judge in this, most people think I make the decisions on these, which ultimately I do. And I'm going to tell you, I rarely go in the courtroom with my mind made up. I have a lot of people that know a lot more about things and services than I do. So quite frequently, my decisions are based on the input I have from the people in the courtroom, which include medical professionals with evaluations or treatment recommendations or those things. So if we could, I guess anybody want to kick out here? Well, I guess we start with Mary. So does anybody have any ideas or or suggestions as to what we need to do for Mary?
So I'm going to just kick in here a little bit.
I'm going to note that Mary was not based on Mary Ellis. It was simply because Mother and Mary start both with M. So go ahead, Mary.
So just at the beginning, just all of these, so judges working in 3 different courts on a daily basis, and they involve the district court, where they do problem solving for drug court, also criminal court, and also the juvenile court. And I can say that the way things are being handled in our systems currently, at least in Dodge County, we're all looking at problem solving rather than just straight out punishment. So we're trying to give people a great opportunity, any services that are available, and trying to see, the question is, what do you need and what is going to help you and how can we help you? So whether they're sitting in a criminal court on a Tuesday morning for a docket, you're going to hear things like that. What is it that we can do? This isn't about punishment. This is about helping and changing your life. So I think that that's turning the course for these people. That's why it's important that we get buy-in from everybody in the community, especially the medical community. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I'll be quiet now for a minute while Judge goes on.
Well, I do think it is important. And I would note there has been a significant shift in how criminal court and even juvenile court functions. Criminal court used to be much more about the punitive, that we were going to punish and change behaviors. Obviously, that led to a lot of problems like prison overcrowding, cyclical issues within families. Same in the juvenile court. We tend to have cycling of generations of families. So we've changed the approach to being problem solving to try to figure out what issues we have going on, try to get resources and help to people to get them out of system. And then get families out of system. So I guess since somebody's chiming in, let's go to the next slide. We'll move on. All right. So Mary, she has a criminal case. It's going to be a felony. So questions would be, does she qualify for drug court? Drug court has the advantage. It's 18 to 24 months of intensive supervision. The advantage, if she successfully completes it, there's no felony conviction on her record. Charges get dismissed. She gets treatment and resources and things she needs. What would be her primary medical needs? Does she have any medical needs we're not addressing? Does she need a substance abuse evaluation? Does she need a psychological evaluation? Does she need a co-occurring evaluation? What led to the substance use? Does she perhaps need the psych eval for post-traumatic stress going back to her first marriage where domestic violence was involved? Do we need medication management? Drug testing would always be part of what's going to happen, whether that be in the criminal court or in the juvenile court. And again, drug testing is not necessarily meant to be punitive as it once was. It's now more to, do we have relapse? Do we have new ongoing use? What type of treatment do we need? Are we looking at residential treatment for Mary? Does her employment factor into treatment recommendations? I mean, she is a surgical technician. She has a good job. She's sole provider for her family. Our license issues, since she's involved in the medical field, things we need to contemplate. What level of treatment? Residential, intensive outpatient? Do we need counseling? Do we need family therapy here? These are all things that would kick in. So, Will, if you could, please. So then we'll move on to Abby, the 14-year-old. She has a juvenile, well, she'll be involved in 2 juvenile cases. It says 47 or 43, 247, 3A. That would be the juvenile case opened for mother for driving while intoxicated with the kids in the car and then being in jail, not being able to provide for the children. But she'll also have a 43, 247 subsection 1 case for the minor in possession. And I would note that this was Miss Ellis adding some of this because I'm not involved in the pre-hearing conference, but in a 3A case, before we have court hearings, we have what's called a pre-hearing conference, which things are discussed. And part of what comes up in that are, do we need a medical check? Are children up to date on eye exams, dental exams, immunizations? Do we need a substance abuse evaluation for Abby since alcohol's involved? Given that she's having a sexual relationship with a 20-year-old man, do we need a psychological evaluation? Do we need Project Harmony or law enforcement interview? Obviously, I would say there need to be criminal charges for Jed, the boyfriend. And again, are we looking at counseling, family therapy, out-of-home placement, those types of things? So those would just be a sampling of what we would contemplate for Abby. And I think the question ultimately becomes what's going on that Abby's feeling compelled, to have a sexual relationship at 14 with a 20-year-old. She have past sexual abuse? Is she post-traumatic stress from domestic violence? What's the trigger that's causing this? So those are the issues we're trying to get to.
I'm gonna just jump in real quick on the pre-hearing conference because we have those before the cases start, and it's just a round table. So you've got everybody present there, like caseworkers, and you've got just pretty much anybody that's a support for the family. The family's there, the attorneys are there, and you have mediation. And mediation runs it, and they tell them up front, look, this isn't about your case. We're not going to discuss any of the elements of your case, but what do you need? And so in the beginning of these cases, and when we have a successful case, you will see in the beginning that maybe these parents come in or these kids, and they don't look great. They are not well. And something that gets done right away is a medical exam, check them out. Immunizations, are they up to date? Are there any drug problems that we can take care of? Dental exam, because some of these kids and adults have not had a dental exam maybe ever. Another one is eye exams, just seeing where they're at with those kind of things. And then that way we can help them get started. A lot of them don't have insurance. How are we going to get that covered? We're going to have to ask the judge if maybe he can order the department to cover the costs if parents don't have insurance for those things. But we try to give them a head start. So a lot of times you might see somebody come into the clinic that's getting a full check. I know Project Harmony is doing some of those exams at this point. So that was my little segment in there.
Well, I think it's also important, I will not speak as to what people feel when they're coming to see medical professionals, but I will tell you almost anybody or in the criminal system or juvenile system or kids involved in the juvenile system are not excited to come to court and participate in these hearings. And so I do think it's very important right from the start that these pre-hearing conferences come from a basis of we're not here, even though judge is in the title, we're not here to judge. We're not here to make you feel awful. we're here to try to find help and resources, and to have all the team members that we work with approach from the same perspective. Because if we do not have, when we walk out of the room, collaboration in place, and we don't have a sense of agreement as to where we're going, then right off the bat, we're going to struggle to get buy-in with everybody, and we're going to be way less successful. Thus, when Mary said a problem-solving approach, what we're trying to do. And Will, if you could. Mary, how much time do I have on this? So I just know. What time do you guys usually get done?
Quarter after? That's
All
all
right.
right.
Yeah, plenty of time. Plenty of time.
All right, just want to make sure. So, all right. Brett, the middle kid, and I kind of threw him in, great student, honor student, doing great, no visible things. Does he need anything? And I guess when kids putting this scenario together, we can have families that are disasters. The parents are terrible. We have kids that are terrible. And then you have this kid that's just brilliant and does great. And, you're like, how can everybody else in this family be horrible and all these horrible things? And yet, you're like, well, what do we need to do for this kid? And do we expose this kid to more trauma, putting him through evaluations to determine if there's something going on, or should we just leave him alone? Things appear to be going well. And, those are tough calls. It sounds easy, but it's a tough call, because maybe this kid's a classic overachiever and stressed out beyond belief, and he's just working amazing at school because he wants to escape this reality. I don't know. And these are hard calls. That's kind of why Brett was creating the scenario the way he was. So again, if anybody has any questions or comments, let me know. Go ahead, Will. All right, Charlie, the 4-year-old, not talking a whole lot, not active in daycare. So what could we do there? Could we do an autism evaluation? Probably should be in speech therapy, EDN network, play therapy, PCIT, and I want to caution here, because I think anymore when we have a child that has a speech delay and when they have weak eye contact and aren't socially, we all jump right away to, it's important we look to see if kids but not every kid that has these symptomologies obviously are going to be autistic. There could be post-traumatic stress, or, there could be a lot of other factors. So again, this is why, if the court system is really going to work and really work in problem-solving mode, the interaction between all the stakeholders, including medical, is so important, because, and I mean this, with the decisions we make in the judicial system can only be as good as the information we have coming in. And if the information we have coming in is not as good as it could be, perfect, hitting what we need, then the services we provide, the outcomes we provide will not be any better than the information we start from. I'm sorry, I saw a question come up.
Yeah, Joyce threw a comment in the chat about Brett, the older boy. She said, if nothing else, Brett needs a psych eval. He needs to have his issues of living in this scenario evaluated and his needs addressed.
And
So
I would tend to agree with that, because I think commonly that you'd go, well, this kid's fine, he doesn't need anything. Well, and it's kind of the approach of the court. You need everybody to understand, just because we're submitting you to this evaluation doesn't mean we think you're messed up or you're a bad person. Just need to know if there are things we can do to help, because if we don't do the evaluation, then we're just shooting in the dark. So I would agree with the comment.
I have one question.
Sure.
I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand, so I just unmuted. But so I work in like substance use disorder, but we don't do chemical evaluations or substance use evaluations at our location. But you mentioned that in a couple of the slides that substance use evaluations is part of that. My question is like, hey, how much of the decisions that you're making for the individuals on like treatment and stuff are based off of sort of those evaluations, and how do you decide like what evaluations are needed with some of those other evaluations that kind of go into it? Could you talk a little bit more about kind of the substance use evaluation side of those?
Did we lose the judge?
It frees up.
He froze
I think
up.
I think I froze him.
I'll start that. So, if it comes in on the report, so when we initially get the case, when the affidavits come in, it will say what they're being charged with and what the complaint or the petition is going to say. If that is an issue that's addressed in there, like somebody has an addiction or they found somebody, with an opioid overdose or something of that nature, then oh, let's see what he's saying. He's logging back in. Can you get anyway, so that kind of thing. So when we're sitting around the big table before anything else happens, the county attorney will now say, I will offer you immunity if you will want to do these evaluations voluntarily. And so if that's the case and they're offered voluntarily, a lot of times people will allow that and address it because you can't come back and then criminally charge them from something that they've decided to do and offer information. So if you're not really sure, then we do an IDI, um, and that just kind of says, this is what the person might need. But if it's a substance use evaluation, then usually the person at some point it usually starts at a lower level, like an outpatient, go see somebody, maybe do some med management, something of that nature, and do some type of treatment. And then that way they can get started with it, and it can also help cover the costs of that. So definitely those kind of things. And do you guys see those, Will, or not normally?
Sorry, see what now?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Ed,
Ed.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Do you normally see those evaluations when they do come in if somebody's had them?
no, but we like a lot of times people are coming to us for treatment and they
Yeah.
want the evaluation done as well. And it's sort of like a quarter thing that they get that done. And I think my follow-up question to you is like, okay, once they get that evaluation done, how much does that sway sort of the direction that you're going in the resources that you're offering them? Is that like what we're basing those decisions on, or is it just more of a collective of sort of like all of those things?
I think in the beginning it's more of a collective thing, but if you're not seeing progress in the person or the case or the family, depending on what court you're in, it definitely will make a difference in the long run because just say they're continuing to use, okay? And it depends on the substance because if somebody's got maybe a THC problem as opposed to an opioid or a methamphetamine problem, it will make a difference down the line because like I said, there's a lot of chances being given, but they've got to make progress at some point. Like probation, there's a lot of money that goes into probation. There's a lot of money that goes into drug court. If they fail out of drug court and they keep using and they're not following what the recommendations are, Judge Hall will sit you in jail for a period of time until you get going on what you need to do. So there's that. And Judge Klein just sent me a thing that said, can you send Zoom link to his Hotmail account? So I don't know how to do that. Do you want me to send it to you? Well, how do I do that?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know if I have his. I can
Oh,
send you the link. I don't know if I have his Hotmail account.
okay.
I'll send it to you now. I'll send you the link now. You can forward that to him.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so basically in the beginning is where we're just trying to gather information. And definitely medical appointments are a priority. I'm telling you, these people come in, they haven't eaten. They've got mental health issues, psychosis. They've got, all sorts of things going on. So the court is trying to it's like a lot of trying to figure out what's going on. So hang on a second. I'm going to try to do this. I am so super not technical, but.
Okay, he's coming back in, it looks like.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. I just sent it too. So, all right. Did I answer your question, Ed?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I think I just was wanting to learn more about that. I think my only follow up question to that is we're kind of waiting for Judge Klein to get back on. Is like
Okay.
how easy is it for people to get the evaluations that they need in time before? Like, is that a difficult thing, or is that pretty well set up going?
It's been pretty well set up because Lutheran Family Service does them usually free or on a sliding fee scale. Out in Fremont, we've got Lotus, who has a grant to do them. Probation, if they're pre-probation, we can get some of those things done as well. So, okay,
All right.
Judge.
Sorry about that. My battery died. So the question was, how much does the evaluation affect what treatment is recommended? I would tell you this is an interesting thing, not to get into a long answer, but due to the fact I work with drug court and problem solving court, there's a complete training and all that through what's called All Rise now. And as judges in that and treatment teams are never to substitute our judgment for treatment based on recommendations from professionals. We are to follow whatever recommendations we get from professionals. So that is an excellent question because, again, the recommendations we get from you as medical professionals are largely going to direct where our cases go. Now, I would tell you that if for some reason there were concerns or questions, rather than just disregard that recommendation, I would probably have somebody get back and say, like the example with Mary, like if that was a residential recommendation for treatment and we had questions about it, then I'd say, well, this lady is the sole provider, has a great job, she's going to lose her job. Would you consider, intensive outpatient instead based on the income factor and get an update from the provider? But we're still following the recommendations of the provider.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Hey, let's go on to the next slide. Again, I apologize to everybody. Sorry about that. All right, Edgar. Believe it or not, this guy's going to be involved in the juvenile case because once juvenile court gets involved, both parents have the opportunity to rehabilitate and be considered for placement or custody of their children. So this is Edgar's the father of the older two, domestic violence. So what things do we do for him? Substance abuse evaluation, psychological evaluation, co-occurring. Domestic violence evaluation. Does he need to be in a batterer's intervention program? Individual therapy, family therapy, all things we consider for Edgar. I would think at a minimum, Edgar, given what we have, I would hope that he previously completed batterer's intervention. If not, he's probably going to be in batterer's intervention. Definite needs for individual therapy and extensive family therapy at a minimum. So, any questions? All right. And then to Tim, he's father of Charlie. Interestingly enough, Mary says her and Tim are going to be together when he gets out of prison. So they're on drugs. Does he need a substance abuse evaluation, psychological, co-occurring, individual therapy, family therapy? This has been a little bit of change in thinking in the juvenile court because it used to be when we had a family involved and we had somebody in prison unless it was unlikely scenarios, usually we were just like, parent who's not in prison, you need to leave this guy. This guy's terrible. And then invariably what happens, we terminate jurisdiction. And then 2 weeks after we terminated jurisdiction, parents would be back together and the whole scenario. So we kind of changed our thinking on that and really try to involve people, even if they're not married, to be involved on a voluntary basis in the case plan court report. Because while we have the ability to give them resources, to give them help, give them treatment, much better to have that while they're there than just exclude them and then have the cycle occur again. So kind of a difference in how we look at it. Again, approaching this from a problem solving standpoint. I saw a question.
Yeah, we had a question in the chat. What would have been done for Tim while he was in prison?
Sadly, not a lot. Now, prison has some programming. The problem is it's very limited. So they'll have like possibility of like an intensive outpatient program or those types of things. Problem is wait lists on those usually are a year or two. Most simple drug felonies have a maximum of 2 years in prison. So most of the time in those scenarios, they're going to get very little programming or treatment while they're in prison, which is again why we're kind of switching, looking at this more to if we can have them in community basis instead of in prison, because the treatment and programming options in prison has a place. I don't want anybody walking out of today's program thinking that I, as a judge, don't have the ability to put anybody in jail, because I will. But instead of viewing it punitively, we really need to look at that as a community protection thing. If people are a danger to the community, they need to be somewhere other than in community. But if it's just a matter of you're upset or angry or I don't know. I'd love to hear you guys approach. I look at this kind of like parenting. Very rarely are we going to punish away behaviors. We need to look at better solutions than just being. I think we create probably more problems in terms of poverty for a family, job opportunities going forward for these people. There are just a lot of problems if people are not a danger to the community to incarceration.
One of the things, I have a couple of cases where dads are in prison. One of them pretty much for life. He does have, he is able to make daily phone calls to his kids, and they do set up video visits. And they are allowed to participate in our court hearings. So, I mean, those aren't really complete services, but it does keep them connected to the family to see what's going on.
And I do think that is important, because if a parent can be involved on because obviously a parent being gone can create a lot of separation issues later in life for kids. So if they can, it's a benefit. Do you have any more slides? I don't even remember how long this presentation is, to tell you. Oh, now we're to questions. So
yeah, so we can kind of open it up now to questions. Feel free to unmute and speak up, ask your questions for Mary and Judge Klein, or you can drop the questions in the chat.
I just want to throw in something. So recently, we have a lot of that, not having people involved in the court that maybe are the support for the person or the partner kind of thing. That's been a difficult change, because you really want these people to go to the next level with their lives and make all these giant changes. And change comes slowly. And sometimes we get to the end of something, and people just can't manage all the things that we're asking of them from that environment. But allowing them to be more transparent about what their life is like, and not judging them so much, but saying, hey, if you've got a partner and they want to be involved, and they want to get involved in substance help of any kind, you know, we'll try to figure out what we can. We can't court order it, but we can try to find services because we're constantly trying to look for services for people. So I think that's making a big difference, and people are buying in a lot better for that type of thing. So I wanted to say that.
Well, I would just add, and I would tell, I don't know how often I would appreciate anybody from the medical side at some point. I know you guys are exceptionally busy, so but I would love it if you guys would come into court at some time and watch court proceedings, just so you'd have a better understanding how these work. And I think if anybody would walk into a Dodge County, especially juvenile court proceeding, it probably would look substantially different than a lot of perceptions of that are. And I don't claim we're perfect. We could do a lot better than we do. But we really, especially early on in cases, try to make everybody understand that we are there for the benefit of the family, and we are there to help, and we're there to provide help and services and resources. Because the tone you set initially, and it's probably not any different than medical care or counseling. If a patient walks in and you're immediately negative and very judgmental, and they pick up that things aren't going to be good, they're probably not engaging in that process. And it's that way in the court. If immediately they feel you're there to judge them, attack them, make them feel awful about themselves, the buy-in and going on. And so we spend a lot of time early in cases where we just have attorneys in these pre-hearing conferences re-emphasizing that. I'll spend 15 minutes at the start of a court hearing early on explaining this to families. So we're trying to get different outcomes. So I do see we had a comment here. So
Yeah, a couple of question and a comment in the chat. We'll go to Patrick's question first. Is the process for problem-solving courts similar in diversion programs?
Somewhat. I think the outcomes are the same. And, broadly based, yes, because again, your advantage in diversion is you don't have the criminal offense or juvenile offense following you around. It's to get resources and help in place and keep them out of the court system. So I would say, yes, they are similar.
Then we've got a comment and a question from Matt. He says, I've been to a drug court graduation, which was quite moving and powerful. Can you talk about that event and how do we get more drug court participants?
That's a lot of education from attorneys because and just working the process. One of the things that's worked well in Dodge County, I sit on Judge Hall's drug court team. On felonies, those originate in county court, and they have a right to a preliminary hearing and those types of things. I set bond on all those cases. So as I'm setting bond, if a case pops up that looks like it's a good candidate for a drug court, usually then I'll immediately try to get counsel appointed, and I might talk to counsel with the state present, say, hey, just, because this person's sitting in jail, is this a drug court case? Can we get them in there? Because as everybody, you guys all know, the sooner that you can get people in and resources treatment, it's a good thing, which is kind of a reverse of how most defense attorneys view cases, because you want all the information you can. But then the next thing is just simply funding, because drug court, problem-solving court requires a lot of resources and supervision from probation. So it becomes a funding issue. I actually had a guy, not even with the judicial system, explain this best to me, because he works on a mentoring program up on the reservation. And he said, we could either spend this money up front putting resources in place for these people to keep these people or these families from repeating through the court system, housing them in jail, putting them in prison, or we can spend 10 times that amount on the back end. And it's just, we got to get a mindset change to focus on keeping people out of system instead of what we're going to do once they're in. I hope that. And you are right. Drug court graduations are extremely moving. I wish more people. We had the Supreme Court up here a couple of years ago on their summer tour, and they sat in on a drug court graduation, and 4 members of the Nebraska Supreme Court were crying during the ceremony. I mean, it's a powerful moment. So.
We got a question here, another in the chat coming in from Ed. What are the primary substances that you are seeing causing issues for individuals that end up in the court system?
Well, I would say meth is still our biggest problem. We see a little we're lucky. I've gone to a lot of cinema. We haven't seen a ton of fentanyl yet here. I mean, we do, but not a lot. Kids, if anybody's got any answer for this, then maybe I'm warped. It seems like 90% of the kids in middle school and high school are using THC vapes now. I mean, we see that repeatedly through the court system, and adults too. But wow, kids, really, really bad. And, dealing with that, because again, our 14-year-olds really addicted. And, I mean, I've taken a lot of training. THC concentrations in the 60s, 3%. THC vapes now like 70%. They're saying there are addictive qualities to that. I'd love to talk to you guys about how we deal with that, because that's a real problem.
Any thoughts on the THC issue or any other thoughts in general for Judge Klein and Mary?
I mean, I can just say I work with a lot of kids, and there's kids who are just not going to school, and they're so unmotivated. Oh my God. And the THC that we're seeing is such a high potency at this point. So a lot of times the questions that I'm asking are like, is there something else that will work for you? Is there anything that you can get involved in? Is there maybe we could try some med management? Maybe we could do some therapy, anything like that. It's just really hard because they're starting at probably like 11 or 12, and it's kind of become a lifestyle. So,
And
Yeah,
Alex,
and
I see
it's
you raised your hand. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Judge.
I'm sorry. I was going to say it's duplicative, and we work a lot with the school system too, because we here in Dodge County we have a huge truancy problem, and the problem is we do everything we can to get these kids back to school. We're lucky we have an alternative school here, but then they have a zero tolerance policy here. So if they get caught with a THC vape, they get suspended from school. Well, a kid who doesn't want to go to school in the first place figures out that they could get suspended by THC vaping. So then they just THC vape and get what they want. I mean, it's very frustrating. And I'm sorry, go ahead. What's the question?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. I've had a couple of people who've come to me where they are criminal justice involved, and I'm seeing them for their overall mental health. My usual move with a specialist or with, work comp stuff is to just call people and say, what can I do, or what does this patient need? Can we call like the attorney or the judge as when we're seeing people in primary care and say, anything I should know, anything I can do to try to help? I mean, the patient will usually tell me, but they might not have the same perspective. They may not have the same motivations. Obviously, it's hard. Like you as a judge can compel people. We as medical people can't. But I just wondered, is there a mechanism for us to call and say, what else can I do to try to help this person get to a better place?
The answer is absolutely. And this is where I talk about working collaboratively. And, I would want, in cases, ideally medical personnel to feel like they're part of the treatment team, for lack of a better term on that. And the communication needs to be really good on that. I would tell you the best way to communicate would be either through HHS, through probation, if they're involved with them, or directly to attorneys. And I would tell you, at least in Dodge County, the attorneys I work with would be very on board with that. I don't know of any attorney I work with that would not want to work with the medical provider to make sure we're getting them all the services they need. So I would gladly do it, but by judicial ethics, that's kind of fuzzy. So that's why I'd kind of shy from that. So.
Any other questions, comments for this morning? I did drop a link in the chat if people want to do that quick survey to grab your certificate for this morning. We can pause here for a few more minutes or for a few more seconds here to see if there are any other questions for Mary and Judge Klein.
I just wanted to add on that. I have had cases that medical providers have wanted to be a part of, and I get them on like a Zoom link because they're busy, they're at work, but if they want to be a part of that case, I just let everybody else know, and then they can also comment on what they think is needed on that particular case. So we do that quite often.
Yeah, we can't comment about specific cases, but coming to mind, we have a juvenile case where the kid's counselor every time is on by Zoom during court hearings. Every time. And like we'll have Boys Town MST come in, and when they're always in the room when they're involved too. So, you know, I appreciate the information. The more information, the better information that we have, the better decisions. And then also, I think it's important to follow up. Then I don't think there's any confusion the other way around. The medical provider is not confused as to what the court's wanting. They are involved. They know what the court's wanting. So it's not only the input in, but the input back out. So we're not trying to do 2 or 3 different things, that we're all, again, on the same page, with a unified front on what we're trying to accomplish. I would say this while we're wrapping up. I appreciate the opportunity today. I hope you were not bored to death. I'm sorry my computer died. If you guys would want any more in the future for me being involved, I would be happy to continue to be involved in this. And I just appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judge Klein and Mary. We'd be happy to have you back again to participate and kind of share your knowledge and experience. I think that would be great. So thank you. I think we can kind of wrap it up here. If you have any further questions or issues, feel free to contact me and I can connect you with Mary or Judge Klein. And we'll end it there. Echo team, if you guys want to switch over to that other link, we'll do a quick team meeting if you're available. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.